So, back in 2013, researchers at IBM realized that their multi-million-dollar supercomputer, Watson, had a pretty serious problem.
Oh, right, the Jeopardy machine.
Exactly, yeah, the exact same sophisticated machine that famously crushed human champions on Jeopardy.
Hmm.
But suddenly, it just couldn't stop swearing at its own creators.
Which is, I mean, kind of hilarious to imagine.
It really is. And the reason was that to teach Watson how humans actually converse, the engineers had fed it the entire database of Urban Dictionary.
A terrible, terrible idea.
An absolute disaster.
Hmm.
The machine completely lost the ability to distinguish between, polite conversational English and just foul-mouthed rants.
Right, because it just treated it all as valid data.
Exactly. IBM literally had to wipe the dictionary from Watson's memory and build a custom swear filter just to get the AI acting right again. So, welcome to the Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Our mission today is to trace the trajectory of the website that broke Watson. We want to explore for you how this dorm room parody project evolved into an unfiltered, chaotic, and oddly crucial linguistic tool.
Yeah, it really is one of the most unconventional success stories in the history of the internet.
Because we have a stack of sources today detailing how this platform went from a college joke to a reference guide utilized by everyone from high court judges to artificial intelligence researchers.
Right. And we are looking at an archive that managed to become an essential cultural touchstone precisely because it refused to play by the traditional rules of data collection or, standard Silicon Valley business models.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how a crowdsourced website reaches the point of corrupting one of the world's smartest machines, we have to look at the philosophy behind its creation.
Yeah, you have to go back to the beginning.
Right. And that philosophy starts in December 1999, right on the edge of the new millennium, with a college freshman named Aaron Peckham.
Yeah, Peckham was a computer science major at California Polytechnic State University. And he initially built the site as a way to compare the different slang terms that university students were using across various parts of California.
Kind of like a localized mapping of college jargon.
Exactly. But the real driving force behind it was a profound frustration with traditional academic dictionaries.
He thought they were too rigid, right?
Oh, completely. He felt they're incredibly stuffy, out of touch, and just took themselves far too seriously. So he wanted to build a database that reflected how real people actually spoke in the dorms, on the street, and across the early internet.
And he had a history of this kind of digital rebellion, too. Like, before he even launched Urban Dictionary, Peckham had built a spoof version of the popular search engine Ask Jeeves.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and he actually got slapped with a cease and desist infringement letter and had to take it down.
Mm-hmm.
So he clearly had this satirical anti-establishment streak running through him from day one.
He really did. He wasn't trying to build the next encyclopedia, He was trying to poke fun at the very concept of one.
Right.
And that satirical DNA is exactly what shaped the platform's mechanics. Because traditional dictionaries operate on a highly rigid, reactive model.
Like waiting for a word to be legitimized.
Yes, exactly. A group of professional lexicographers will wait years, sometimes decades, for a new word to settle into the cultural lexicon before they officially deem it worthy of inclusion. But Peckham built a system to capture language in real time, right at the explosive moment of a word's invention.
In a way, it functions as an anti-dictionary. Because traditional dictionaries strive for sterile neutrality and objective truth, but this platform relies entirely on capturing subjective, highly personal experiences to define words.
Yeah, it completely flips the model.
But wait, if literally anyone with a Gmail account can post a definition and it relies heavily on personal bias, aren't we destroying the core concept of a reference tool?
How do you mean?
Well, a dictionary is supposed to be a neutral arbiter of meaning, right? Not just a collection of opinions.
You would think so, yeah. But in the realm of slang, bias isn't a bug. It's actually the defining feature.
Really?
Yeah, because slang is inherently cultural and contextual. A sterile definition of a street term often entirely misses the nuance of how it's actually deployed in a real conversation.
That makes sense.
So the personal bias, the jokes, the specific scenarios that users provide in their entries, that subjective experience provides the critical context that an academic definition strips away. It captures the flavor of the culture, not just the raw ingredients.
Oh, I like that. So you really can't separate the slang from the people using it.
Exactly. And that raw approach resonated on a massive scale, though, it wasn't an immediate financial windfall by any means.
Right, took a while.
It took 5 full years just for the site to turn a profit. But here is the mechanism of its survival that really stands out.
Hmm.
If you fast forward to 2014, 15 years after its launch, the site is an absolute behemoth. Peckham is living in San Francisco, right in the epicenter of the tech boom. He's surrounded by startups burning through millions in venture capital, yet he was still the sole employee of Urban Dictionary.
That is just wild to me.
Right. What's fascinating here is how he actively rejected the standard Silicon Valley playbook. He turned down venture funding and refused any thoughts of an IPO.
Because he knew it would change the site.
Exactly. He recognized that the moment he answered to a corporate board of directors, the authentic, gritty soul of the site would be sanitized.
Right, because the moment you have investors, you have to worry about brand safety.
Yep.
By keeping it a one-man operation, he insulated the site from corporate pressure. But that fierce independence comes with a massive operational consequence. I mean, if he's essentially running this solo, he has no moderation team.
None.
And that became a colossal liability when the platform's traffic just exploded.
And the scale of that explosion is really hard to overstate. By 2009, they were hitting 15 million unique visitors every single month. By 2014, the site housed 7 million entries, with users adding 2,000 new words every single day.
Just a tidal wave of content.
Yes. And by 2020, that number had swelled to over 12 million definitions. It became this sprawling, unmanageable ocean of human language.
And the mechanics of managing that ocean are just absurd. It's not a meritocracy at all. It's practically mob rule.
It really is.
The quality control relies entirely on volunteer editors. To review a submission, these volunteers literally just click one of 3 buttons: add it, keep out, or I can't decide.
That's the entire vetting process.
Right. They don't have to follow any strict linguistic criteria. They aren't even allowed to edit the entries for spelling, grammar, or punctuation. Whatever the user type, typos and all, goes straight to a vote.
Which means the site operates in a perpetual state of chaos.
Yeah.
There's no central authority verifying the factual accuracy of a definition, or even checking to see if a slang term actually exists outside the submitter's immediate friend group.
So if the barrier to entry is just having a Facebook account, and the voters can't even fix a misplaced comma, aren't we just elevating a digital bathroom wall to the status of a reference book?
Pretty much.
Like, it feels less like a dictionary and more like a popularity contest for inside jokes.
Well, that is the precise criticism that has shadowed the platform for its entire existence. In many ways, it is exactly a digital bathroom wall.
Right.
And when you give the internet a permanent, unfiltered wall to write on, you inevitably capture some deeply horrific things.
Oh, absolutely.
Peckham eventually had to put up some guardrails. Around 2011, he established rules clarifying that while racial and sexual slurs were allowed to be defined because, they exist in the real world and people need to know what they mean,
Yeah.
overtly racist and sexist entries designed purely to attack people were not.
Right. But declaring a rule and actually enforcing it across millions of entries with a volunteer voting system are 2 entirely different
It's so
things.
night and day.
The system fundamentally failed to catch malice on multiple occasions.
It failed spectacularly. The most glaring example in the source material happened in 2018. There was massive public outrage over a flood of profoundly racist definitions targeting the word Aboriginal.
And the voting system didn't stop it.
The voting system didn't flag them at all. It amplified them. It became such a severe issue that a petition was launched on change.org. It took over 7,000 signatures and intense public pressure just to force the platform to step in manually and remove that specific hate speech.
Which is crazy. If we think about that mechanism, it means the platform relies on external public outrage to regulate its own internal database.
Yes, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, Urban Dictionary serves as a perfect early microcosm of the platform moderation dilemma we see across modern social media today.
100%.
There is an inherent, almost unresolvable tension between wanting to serve as a raw, unfiltered archive of human thought and inadvertently providing a hosting ground for hate speech and targeted harassment. Finding the line between documenting human behavior and amplifying its darkest impulses is incredibly difficult when your entire business model is crowdsourced text.
That's a massive vulnerability.
Yeah.
But the irony is that despite being a messy, highly volatile bathroom wall, this database became so comprehensive that the most rigid, formal institutions in our society realized they couldn't do their jobs without it.
It's true.
The legal system, which requires absolute precision, suddenly encountered an explosion of internet-era slang, that it simply couldn't decipher.
The clash between the strictness of the law and the fluidity of internet culture is just striking. We started seeing this collision as far back as 2003.
Oh, wow, that early.
Yeah. A high court judge in the United Kingdom who was presiding over a case involving two rappers officially turned to Urban Dictionary to interpret the slang lyrics used in the evidence.
That is amazing.
A high court judge relying on a crowdsourced college project for legal interpretation was a massive watershed moment.
And the domestic examples are just as wild. When you look at how criminal justice actually functions, proving intent is everything.
Right?
Like, federal ATF agents literally used this site in a district court complaint to define the word murk, spelled M-U-R-K, to establish that it was an accepted street term for a criminal threat.
Wow.
Yeah. And in Tennessee, a sexual harassment case utilized the dictionary to officially define the phrase to nut, basically proving to the court that it carried a sexually explicit meaning that contributed to a hostile work environment.
It's just wild where it pops up.
It was even submitted as evidence to decode the street gang named the Jack Boys.
Right. It basically acts as an essential, if imperfect, translator. The courtroom relies on precedent and established definitions. But criminals, and honestly just the general public, frequently operate using coded language designed specifically to evade those established definitions.
Right, right.
So Urban Dictionary effectively crowdsources the decryption of that code.
It's not just heavy criminal cases benefiting from this either. My favorite example of bureaucracy hacking involves this guy in Las Vegas who wanted a vanity license plate reading HOE. H-O-E.
Oh, I can see where this is going.
The Department of Motor Vehicles immediately moved to reject it for obvious profanity reasons.
Of course.
But the man successfully appealed by pulling up an Urban Dictionary entry and convincing DMV officials that in his specific context, it was merely a common slang abbreviation for a Chevy Tahoe.
That is brilliant.
He used an anti-establishment slang dictionary to beat a state government agency on a technicality.
It's a brilliant manipulation of the system. But you know, when words hold that much power, the definitions hosted on the site stop being passive records and become active battlegrounds.
Oh, definitely.
Because anyone can submit and vote, the platform is highly susceptible to coordinated narrative warfare, which can actually trigger real-world political incidents.
And we see that perfectly illustrated in the Philippines controversy.
Exactly. In August of 2019, the site found itself at the center of an international political clash involving the administration of President Rodrigo Duterte.
Right.
A series of highly upvoted entries on Urban Dictionary defined the last name Duterte as deceptive, sly, fake, and even compared the family name to feces.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the traction of these definitions was so significant that it forced the presidential spokesperson, Salvador Panelo, to publicly address the crowdsourced website from the presidential palace.
That's insane.
Panelo argued the inverse, claiming the name actually meant honest, incorruptible, and courageous. He formally accused anti-Duterte political factions of intentionally manipulating the site's voting mechanics to run a smear campaign against the president.
Just to be incredibly clear to you listening, we are absolutely not taking sides or endorsing either viewpoint here. We are simply reporting on the political clash exactly as it's documented in the source material to show how this website impacts real-world politics.
Exactly. It just demonstrates that defining reality on the internet is a zero-sum game. If you control the top definition on a heavily trafficked site, you control the narrative.
Yeah.
The fact that a government felt threatened by those definitions proves the immense leverage of the platform.
It confuses politicians, it educates high court judges, and it completely breaks our most advanced technology. Because here's where it gets really interesting. Let's loop back to our opening hook with Watson.
Oh, yeah. The Watson incident is incredibly revealing about the limitations of natural language processing, especially in its earlier stages.
Right, because IBM spent years and millions of dollars developing Watson to process complex data, read medical journals, synthesize logic. But they realized it sounded robotic.
It didn't sound human.
So to make it conversational, they fed it the Urban Dictionary database, and the machine essentially had a breakdown. It couldn't figure out the difference between a helpful piece of modern slang and a vicious insult. It just started cursing out the researchers.
Yeah.
So, does this prove that understanding internet slang is a uniquely human trait? Like, does parsing this kind of language fundamentally require the lived experience of existing in a society?
I mean, it strongly points to that conclusion. The issue is that human language, especially slang, isn't just data. It's layered with tone, irony, subversion, and historical context.
Right.
Slang is frequently designed to mean the exact opposite of its literal definition. Think of how bad can mean good, or sick can mean awesome.
Exactly.
Furthermore, slang is often explicitly created as an exclusionary tool to identify who is in the know and who is an outsider. Watson was an incredibly powerful logic engine, but it only saw text strings.
It just saw ones and zeros.
Yeah, it lacked the lived cultural experience required to know when a word was a joke and when it was a slur.
You can program a machine to understand syntax, but you can't program it to understand irony.
Precisely. And that uniquely human, highly contextual element is exactly why professional academics and linguists deeply value the site today.
An archive for them.
It really is. Before algorithms homogenized our social media feeds and flattened regional internet cultures, people spoke in highly specific, localized digital dialects. Linguists utilize Urban Dictionary as a raw digital time capsule to study the development of early 2000s internet syntax.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It's one of the few surviving records of how regular people communicated online before the era of Twitter and TikTok.
It's like finding a massive wall of digital graffiti from an internet era that doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
But there is a very strange recent development regarding the preservation of this time capsule. Sometime in 2024, the official Urban Dictionary apps mysteriously vanished from both the Apple App Store and Google Play.
Yeah, and the disappearance happened with zero public explanation.
Nothing.
Nothing. Users who had previously downloaded the app could still access it on their devices, but it was completely wiped from the searchable storefronts for new users. No press release from the app stores, no statement from Aaron Peckham, just a quiet deletion of an app that had accrued millions of downloads.
Wow. Well, if we think about Apple and Google's incredibly strict developer guidelines regarding user-generated hate speech and moderation, it's not hard to connect the dots.
No, it's pretty clear.
An unmoderated, crowdsourced slang dictionary that explicitly relies on user bias is a fundamental compliance nightmare for a modern sanitized app store.
It's a massive clash of philosophies, and this raises an important question regarding the fragility of our digital history.
How so?
Well, we rely on these private corporate platforms to house our cultural records. If a database containing 25 years of linguistic evolution can have its mobile presence erased overnight simply because it doesn't align with the tech giant's modern terms of service, do we risk permanently losing access to our own cultural artifacts?
It really emphasizes how precarious the internet is. One day it's an indispensable tool cited by federal agents and studied by linguists, and the next day it might quietly disappear from your phone because of a policy update.
It's pretty sobering.
Yeah, it is. Well, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We've traced how a college freshman's satirical project to mock stuffy academics morphed into a multi-million entry database.
We really went everywhere.
We explored the operational chaos of relying on a volunteer mob for moderation, and how that messy, offensive, and brilliant archive became a necessary evil for the legal system to decode the modern world.
And we saw it spark international political drama.
Yeah, and entirely break the logic circuits of an advanced supercomputer. So what does this all mean?
That is the big question.
I think it means that the next time you drop a piece of highly obscure slang into a group chat, you should pause and remember the life cycle of that word. That fleeting inside joke might eventually end up solemnly entered into evidence by a lawyer, or it might end up deeply confusing an artificial intelligence trying to parse the nuances of human connection.
That's a great point.
But I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. If traditional dictionaries represent how we are supposed to speak ordered, clean, and rule-bound, and Urban Dictionary represents how we actually speak chaotic, subjective, heavily biased, and deeply weird, which one is the truer reflection of our society? And if a platform built entirely on unfiltered human opinions eventually becomes our permanent historical record, what does it say about the future of truth and language? Because as Watson showed us, sometimes when you try to feed the raw, unfiltered human experience into a machine built for pure logic, the machine simply breaks. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.